Welcome and thank you for joining me. My name is Brian Johnson, and I am an applications expert for Imaginate Technologies. This video tech tip will provide an overview of Project Explorer for Civil 3D. If you're not familiar with Project Explorer, it is an all-in-one interface used to manage model content and report on model data. Users can gain an improved understanding of their design and allows them to review, validate, report, and edit models. Project Explorer was released as an entitlement to the AEC collection for 2021 and runs inside of Civil 3D. Also, if you have the AEC collection for 2020 with Civil 3D installed, Project Explorer will also get installed there. So let's jump into Civil 3D and take a look. Once Project Explorer has been installed, you'll find the icon to launch it on the ribbon in the Add-ins tab. From there, we can click on Launch Project Explorer and the mode list dialog will open. So let's take a tour around the interface. At the top, we have tabs that represent different objects of the data that we have inside of Civil 3D. We have alignments, assemblies, corridors, point groups, and more across the top. As you see, numbers beside each one of the icons show you the number of Civil 3D objects that reside within that collection or that group. Below that, we have a graphical interface. In this case, I'm showing an alignment, and I'm showing the graphical interface of that alignment. Below that, we have an objects window. Inside of the objects window, we have the ability to click on any of the objects contained within that group. So in this case, with alignments, I have each alignment. Also with alignments, we get the profile that comes along with it. Below that, we have a sub-object window. So those sub-items that are contained within an object. So for alignment, we have things like the alignment entities. The sub-items that make up the object itself. If we're looking at corridors, in the graphics window, we might see where the stationing is on that corridor and be able to pick the station that we want to see and see a typical section through the corridor in the graphics window. Below that, we would see the corridor itself, so we can choose which corridor we would like to see. And below that would be the sub-objects of that corridor. So in this case, we would see the baseline in any of the regions. We typically get some tabs across the top of our sub-object area so that we can break that down into different types of entities. So in this case, we can see baselines and feature lines for a corridor and the corresponding data with those. So in this case, I can see my feature lines, I can see my start station, end station, and any of the data that goes along with that feature line. I can also see what happens at each station where that feature line happens to exist. To break that down even further, if I want to look at the assemblies that I have in this drawing, then whatever assembly I have selected here is what's displayed in the graphics area. The data that goes along with that assembly, things like the style that's being used, the code set style that's being assigned. And of course, below that, the sub-assemblies that are attached to that assembly. Notice that when I select any one of the sub-assemblies, it highlights in the graphics area which one I currently have selected. And I have the data that goes along with it. So a couple of things. In the navigation window, I can zoom in and zoom out. I can pan. So I can look at different areas just by navigating through that window. I also have some controls, usually depending on what type of object I have selected. I have controls here, such as I can view just the referenced assemblies, violated assemblies, things that have violations or warnings involved. If it were a corridor, then I could go from station to station. I have different options depending on what type of object I have selected. In the object window, you'll notice I've got some colors that are going on here. I've got some that are purple. Anything that's purple like that means that it has an editable value there. So I could double click on it and I could change the assembly name, for example. Or I can change the assembly style. If it's red, it's calling my attention to it to tell me that there's a warning or a violation there. If I hover over it, it will tell me what that violation is. Basically, this is just a warning in this case telling me that this particular assembly is not referenced to any corridors in my drawing. It's there in my drawing, but it's just not being used. So below that, the same with my sub-assemblies. If I want to make changes to a sub-assembly here, I can absolutely go in and change the width, for example, to something different. Other features that I have in these windows, I absolutely can right-click on any one of the objects and get another menu that opens up. So I would recommend right-clicking on any of the objects and taking a look at the tools that you have available to you from the right-click menu. That's both in the object area and also in the sub-object area. You have right-click. And depending on the type of object that you have currently selected, you're going to have menu items or commands that you can use for each one individually. There are also some key commands that you can use. For example, if I want to find out exactly where this particular assembly lives, when I have it selected, I can press the Z button, and that would take me into my workspace and zoom right in on that particular assembly. If I want to select it, I can press the S key, and you may not need to see this selected, so let me zoom to it. And you can see that it is selected by pressing the S key. If I want to get to the properties of any one of these objects, I can either press the A or the E key, and that would open up the properties of the object that I have selected. So as you can see, Project Explorer is really a great tool for us to be able to access things all in one location. Any of our data inside of Civil 3D. It gives us an all-in-one hub that gives us the ability to work with the data that we have, validate the data that we have, look at what we have in our drawings. It's an easy to use interface. And one of the big benefits I see from it is that it provides an efficient way to be able to navigate the data that I have in the drawing without having to open up multiple windows or go to different locations to find information. So this was just a quick overview of Project Explorer. There's a lot more that this tool can do, especially around reporting on the data. So in future videos, we will cover more of the details and being able to create reports with this tool. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you have any questions, please contact us at Imaginet Technologies.